Welcome to Deception Roll, the show where I openly lie to my friends by reading them 3 r/RPG horror stories, one of which I made up. It is completely false. We'll of course give advice along the way to those in need. We have the usual 3 contestants, Tristan at 2 points, Bean at 4 points, and the lead, because Ivy's at 3 points.
I can't believe I let that one slip.
Crestfallen.
So
Are we ready for our first one?
yes.
By user ExTheGoat. I should have seen the red flags earlier. Our DM was always very passionate about half-elves. At first, it seemed like a fun preference. He talked about how they were the perfect balance between humans and elves. How they had the best of both worlds. Standard fantasy talk, right? Then I started noticing a pattern. Every major NPC, half-elf. The wise king, half-elf. The mysterious rogue, half-elf. The blacksmith, half-elf. Even the monsters would sometimes turn out to be cursed half-elves that were tragically misunderstood. Whenever a player made a character, he'd subtly pressure them into making a half-elf. If they didn't, he'd find ways to make them want to be one. Our dwarf fighter found out he had half-elf ancestry and suddenly gained an inner conflict about his true identity. The one guy who made it a full-blooded elf, he was constantly told by NPCs that he was a cold and arrogant elf and should try to be more like his half-elf companions. Now, I don't mind a bit of character romance in RPGs, but every single romantic interest in this game, half-elf. Every tavern wench, every brooding warrior, every mysterious stranger in the corner, all half-elves. One NPC told my dragonborn sorcerer, you'd be so much more beautiful if you had softer features, like a half-elf. But the worst part, our party had been captured by a group of evil slavers. We were expecting some gritty, intense escape scenario. Instead, the slavers brought us before their leader, a half-elf. Not just any half-elf, an ultra-perfect, godlike half-elf who was running a selective breeding program to create the ultimate race. This half-elf overlord was obsessed with perfecting the bloodline, and offered our characters a choice. Join me and I will grant you the gift of a half-elven perfection. Refuse, and you will be nothing. I left the campaign that night, and haven't bothered to check back in. I draw the line at eugenics, by user ExTheGoat.
Mr. Sinister sounding villain. That is nefarious.
Red flag.
No.
I'm throwing the red flag. Sail the red flag.
No.
I'm wrapping myself in the red flag right now, actually.
Racism.
Yeah, wow.
Don't do that.
Yeah, don't do a racism.
Why?
Moral of the story.
Ask your ex
Fucking don't do racism.
This might be something more, not even the level of D&D. I feel like this might be more of a moral issue inside of your own soul. Like, I think there's something wrong.
But it's a fantasy setting. How bad could it possibly be?
Even if it's a fantasy setting, there might be something more morally wrong with your DM.
If you pick that man's brain, he's gonna come out and say, "But like, what did the old H man actually do wrong?"
I think it's
the big H. I call him the big H because he's my friend.
I think a setting where a world is mostly half-elves is okay, but because your players are not half-elves, that's the weird part. That you're like, that's really fucking weird.
The fact that that the DM was basically he said he was pressuring his players into either like shaming them for not being a half-elf, or like retroactively changing their backstory so that way they are at some point a half-elf somewhere in their line.
Right.
Being a person. Oh my god. I hate it.
If you're into half-elves, like if you're really into half-elves, good, be into half-elf. Don't make it weird.
Don't make it your whole personality.
Now you made it weird.
Yeah. Now you turn it into a fetish thing so no one else can enjoy half-elves. You ruined it for all of us.
Half-elves are for everyone, okay? I'm just weird. It's weird. I don't know what else to say other than this.
I wonder if it is actually like a racism thing, or if they are genuinely just obsessed with half-elves.
That's what I'm trying to figure out. I said, is there...
Are they a Nazi, or do they just really like half-elves? Who's to say?
The line is very blurred.
Yeah, I don't know. That's why I said it might be a moral issue with inside the DM.
Yeah.
About something else. I don't know. Or it could be a fetish. I don't know.
It could be a fetish.
It could be a fetish. And if it is, power to you. Don't make everyone else part of it.
That's just basically a human with pointy ears. Like, that's...
Yeah. Out of all the races to choose, why half-elf? You could be a drow, which is a much cooler elf.
Yeah. I'd go with goblin, personally.
Cobalt all the way, baby.
Are you ready for the next one?
Yes.
By user RedFoxMusic. I'd been a fairly long-time player with a purely online D&D group. There was one player, who I'll call Steve. Steve plays decently, but most of his character ideas were typically from other media. He claimed they weren't, but 7 Family Names of the Fourth, a gunslinger haunted by a tragic family event, was totally original. So was the sorcerer in brown coat that burned his family alive. Regardless, we played on, and eventually, I can't recall how exactly, but he'd been particularly annoying to play with, and was obstructing progress more than helping it. I told the DM, "Do you want me to talk about it?" since I was usually the conflict resolution guy. DM said sure, but on one condition. That'll come up later. I messaged Steve, and after some niceties, I explained that we weren't particularly happy with his playing today. Steve responded, apologetically, I can speak. He was particularly fond of playing with me. You're among the best players I've ever played with, he said. I'll take the ego stroke, and he asked the question, do you have any feedback for me to do better next session or in future sessions? It was pretty typical stuff, and he engaged with it in the moment too. Responded well and seemed appreciative of the feedback. It became a very pleasant conversation overall. It was late in the evening, so we said goodnight, and we chatted another time. The following morning, the DM is texting me that Steve had messaged him, claiming I was verbally abusing him and bullying him in conversation, and so on and so forth. It's true that the conversation started a bit blunt and harsh, but abusive. The DM screen shared the conversation he had with Steve over text. We'd burst out laughing. What Steve didn't know is that the DM requested a screenshot of the end of the feedback conversation the night before, just so we'd have clarity on what the given feedback was. That was a condition that the DM set. Steve had edited every Discord message to take a victim tone of "please not tonight, I am doing very poor mentally." The DM asked why all of his messages said edited at the end. Steve alleged he was making typos because he was so distraught by everything. At my recommendation, the DM asked Steve to take a screenshot of the edited timestamp. If you didn't know that was a thing, we didn't either. It is. Hover over that part and you'll see what is last edited, not the history. To summarize the end, we confronted Steve with the conversation screenshots that actually happened the night before. He didn't have much to say as a result, and was kicked from both the game and some projects we were working on. This remains generally one of the funniest bits of drama I've ever experienced. This was several years ago, and we've since spoken and metaphorically shook hands. Never asked or understood the goal behind this, honestly. I'm also thankful that the DM approached me first about it, since they know I wouldn't do this and personally take mental health seriously. By user RedFoxMusic.
Power to the DM. Good
Oh
fucking
my
power move,
gosh.
dude. That was insane. I wouldn't have thought of that.
Some fucking Death Note shit.
Damn.
DM is
Make sure you
playing
screenshot.
chess while everyone else is
Yeah.
playing checkers, dude.
Damn. Now the question is, did the DM already know this guy was a problem person?
I assume.
Because he's asking for the
Screenshot.
screenshots.
Yeah, just
Or is this
picture.
or is this the DM just going, this needs to happen with everyone so we're all on the same page type of thing?
True.
So if like something is being lied later, I'm aware that it was a lie because I have that information.
Yeah.
But good move on the DM. That was really fucking smart. You're
Get outplayed, Steve.
Yeah. Fuck you, Steve.
Steve, victim role, man. Come on. You don't need to be a victim. It's okay.
If it wasn't
Not
a pleasant
everyone-
conversation, then like, why?
Because it's a victim thing. They like the
if it was a
attention.
pleasant conversation, why?
It's an attention thing.
He just doesn't want to be in the wrong. He wants
Yeah.
he wants to keep playing like he's been playing, and he doesn't want
To change.
to change.
Yep.
But then faking a whole normal conversation with a human being is crazy.
That's because
That
he
is
doesn't want to be wrong.
unhinged. Yeah, that is unhinged.
Think about the amount of people that don't like to be wrong and they
But
make
that
up
is
stuff.
an extra step.
Listen,
to
I
be
hate
like
being-
to have a normal, pleasant conversation
Yeah.
with someone being like, "I was wrong,"
I hate
to then later be like, "No, I'm not wrong."
Right, because they want to. They want to
Yeah,
manipulate
That's
it.
just
That's
just
terrible.
It was a weird choice.
It sounds like another control person. Person that wants control. Over the things that are happening.
Steve, they're sending you to Detroit.
Become
Sorry.
human.
True.
Are we ready for the third one?
Yes.
By user Educational Manor 835. I started playing D&D as a dungeon master 2 years ago with a couple of friends. They really liked my style of DMing, so I started doing it with larger groups and more often after they encouraged me to. I try to keep my campaigns open to pretty much anyone who wants to join, beginner or not. So when a friend of a friend asked if their friend of a friend could join my latest one, I said of course. For context, I don't have a lot of nice D&D equipment per se. I have digital copies of all the rulebooks and guides on my iPad that I keep nearby when playing. My DM screen is homemade. My notes and designs are all handwritten. I use homemade figurines or ones I have from my childhood. I hand design my maps, etc. I've never thought about it much before, and I don't think my usual players have either. This new person was a few minutes late to this meeting. Not a big deal. When he showed up, he raised his eyebrows at my setup, which I didn't think of much at the time. It kind of gave me a weird look. Fine, whatever. Later on in the game, a new person had a question about a rule, and I opened up my iPad and scrolled through my digital player's guide to find the answer. Once again, he raised his eyebrows and scoffed. This continued for the whole game. When an NPC became a bigger part of the story than I had anticipated, I took out my bracelet and placed it on the map to represent them. He wrinkled his nose. When I pulled out my childhood ogre figure as an enemy, he scoffed, etc., etc. It was starting to make me feel insecure, but I was having a good time with the other players, so I ignored him. He subtly continued like this for the rest of the session. Finally, I was scribbling on some notes, a sticky note, when he snapped, kind of. He said something along the lines of, "I can't believe this." I asked what the problem was, and he gestured to my stuff, calling me disrespectful for not bothering to make my setup nicer for my players. He said it was childish and ruined the fun for everybody. When nobody was siding with him, he texted his usual DM, who responded by saying that I wasn't a good dungeon master if my setup was handmade / not professional. That was kind of my breaking point, so I yelled at him and told him to go. Afterwards, a few of my players said that I was being unfair to him and defending him by saying that he might just be used to fancy setups, which I understand and can sympathize with. Yesterday, he messaged me asking me about the next session, and I don't know what to say. Again, by user educational manner, H35.
The setup's not for you. It's not for you. It's not for you.
Yeah.
It's for the DM.
Ask old boy if he's willing to pay for the stuff. If Elon's at your table, he better be chipping in.
I played D&D when I was in 7th grade. Mm-hmm. I did not know D&D. I didn't have a single book. Because I'm in 7th grade. I don't have a job. I did not have a book. I did not have any minis. I did not have any maps. I didn't have anything. I learned D&D through watching D&D. Not D&D rules. Like literal Acquisitions Incorporated. I don't watch Critical Role, but Acquisitions Incorporated is what introduced me to it. And that's where I stuck. That's where I learned all the little things I wanted to go with. And then for my games, I would use gridded maps, and then I would just color it with crayons. If this man was at my table, he would shit himself. he would fly through the ceiling.
How old are you when you're in 7th grade? You have to put that in perspective, you know?
Yeah, but even then, it's just I've lived with that for most of my life, and then within high school, I started to get. I got like a book. Still didn't read it, but I had the book. I had the monster manual first because I wanted to know more about the monster.
The best DMs don't read the guide.
And then I got the monster manual. I also want to point out, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure like the first iterations of D&D didn't have like minis and maps and shit. I'm pretty sure it was tokens.
I think my favorite little knowledge nugget about the first monster designs for D&D is they went to like a nearby like dollar store, grabbed a pack of like weird off-brand monsters, and just like, all right, these are how we're gonna make our monsters for this game. Like that's how D&D started with their like first original monsters.
And maps were again gridded.
Yeah.
Like they came in. It's just a fucking grid in some of the books. You just rip that out and you just place it on the table. And again, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure D&D books nowadays don't even talk about a tabletop.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Not as much, if anything.
But like it's a lot of campaigns run by Theater of the Mind.
Yeah.
Lots of them do because it's expensive. It's expensive to have certain things. Mm-hmm. Either make your own, buy it if you can buy it. But no, I think it's awesome that he made his own shit. Yeah. That's cool. I'm sorry that.
Also, the audacity to call another DM, and that DM being like, "This shit's ass, man. This is bad."
He
like,
came in with an agenda, dude.
Yeah, like, was he like a health inspector for this DM? What the fuck was his problem?
Oh yeah, 1 out of 5.
If ever we brought a person to the table and they were scoffing at our setup, they'd catch a hook to the side of the head. Like,
I remember when we were doing some of the first episodes of Aramora, where like during the battle with the bugbear in the outhouse,
it was a reused map.
Yes, it's like the one of the only times that we actually used the map. And during the actual battle, like some of us left the main area, and you had put a map on, like the battle map, on top of the actual like map that we were using, and you're just like, you have to draw another map. Here's a hallway. It was like that shit was so charming. Like, it was genuinely like, because you have to
Personal favorite is when you try to film an episode from the top down and you use like a tube with a camera stuck in the end of it.
Yes.
And couldn't end up using it at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I lost it.
Behind the scenes things.
I lost it. I'm sorry.
No, that's
Yeah, but now, well, behind the scenes, Dice and Mimic, we have dice, and that's it.
Yeah.
There are
We
no
have.
maps.
Do you want to describe this? Right now, there's a mic in front of 4 of us. We're on a foldable table. There's a DM screen that's blocking a computer. Like, I can't even see into the computer. That is all we have. And then we all have our dice trays. And maybe some notebooks.
Yeah.
Oh, don't forget
Paper
the
plates.
paper plates for pizza.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
pizza.
Yeah, there's various things laying around, but yeah, D&D is not.
It is not required for
You
models.
don't need to
You
be
don't.
like
Watching
a
Dimension
pro-
20 is awesome, I understand.
Yes.
Watching the first season of Fantasy High and seeing the setup and the stuff, but that's made to be content that is enjoyed. If you're at a home game, it doesn't really matter.
And we have to keep in mind the people that do have those things, like Dimension 20.
They had a budget.
They have a massive
They
budget.
have like a department that builds it
yeah,
for them.
we are 4 people that all have full-time
Yeah.
jobs.
This guy was just using stuff from his childhood, but like, just alright, just imagine this is a Minotaur. Like, that's fine.
Yeah.
Invest
You do what you have.
in
You-
a tiny sliver, a scrap even, of imagination, you fuck ass.
Which is what D&D is.
Yeah, I was
entirely.
gonna say.
Just a
Damn.
sliver, a crumb.
Brutal.
Brittle.
Brittle.
Brittle like that man.
I mean, that man is brittle, but brutal for being an ass.
How you gonna sit there?
But then he also asked when the next session is.
No, get the
he
fuck
wants
outta
to
here.
come back.
That's crazy.
Just crazy work. Get the fuck out of here.
You
Kiss,
believe
kiss.
this fucking guy?
Can you believe
Get
this
out.
fucking
Fuck
guy?
off.
Alright, well there we have 3 stories. First one, user ExTheGoat, the half-elf supremacy. User RedFoxMusic, the Steve situation. And user Educational Manner.
Education.
3-5. The too poor to have a good setup DM.
I think it's 1.
I think
I'm
it's
not
1
going
too.
to elaborate
I'm not going to lie.
because
Please elaborate.
my opinions are my own. My reasons are my own, DM. I will not elaborate.
Elaborate, please.
No.
For the listeners. For the
fine.
gentle
Oh,
listeners.
you're so right for the listeners. I think it's too normal. I think you took inspiration from current events and you put it into a story.
Okay. Everyone else?
I feel like the other 2 are extremely elaborate, while the first one isn't.
I'm starting to get a hold of your writing style as well.
Are you?
Yes, I think so.
Okay.
Once again, I will not elaborate on that, but
Well, you
I'm
beat
starting to.
3. We got 1, 3, and 1. Alright, it was 1.
Ah!
We're coming up in the world.
Yes, you are. So now it's 3,
4.
4, 4. Look at you!
I'm climbing, guys. Stop
I'm so
stepping on my
proud of
face.
you. I'm so proud of you.
Tristan at 3, Bean at 4, Ivy at 4. They've got a tie. And that's all for this
I'm
episode
out
of
for
Deception
blood.
Roll.
Not for
Bye
blood.
bye.
Bye.